Good weekend, everyone. I hope you're all doing amazing this weekend so far on this holiday weekend of ours. We had a lot of things going on this past week, but so far it's kind of been the calm before the storm, if you will. We've got the collection data coming up, we've got Easter egg hunts going on with the holidays, trading challenges, and a ton more. So strap in, join me in this week in review in the Upland metaverse. The Upland Metaverse Review is where we take a bit of time to discuss what's going on the Upland Metaverse from more of an analytical perspective. If this is your first time landing on the page, welcome, my friend. I hope to earn your like and subscription today. How is the UPX economy doing? How about each market sector? Spark values and housing prices? Which is the best deal and which is the worst? All of the important information that a lot of folks miss, and that can be the difference between success and failure. If you want to join all of us in the Upland Metaverse, head over to discover.upland.me/SSFTG. Love it. Or click the promo link in the description to make it easier, which gets you into Upland with 6,000 starting UPX that kickstarts your adventures in the Metaverse. Plus, if you decide to invest some cash into the game, since you use the promo link, you also get a monster 50% bonus to your first UPX purchase with a cap of 50,000 UPX. So with all that fun stuff out of the way, let's take a look at the news and everything else going on this past week and what to expect going forward. First off, on April 11th, we had the Queen's stress test update. An announcement on the 12th was the update. And the Queen's stress test, this giveaway, or the Spark giveaway for this, was effectively just during the stress test of Woodside and Jackson Heights, where if you were there and you were minting and you were jumping around and all that fun stuff, you were entered in for a chance to win some Spark. Those winners were announced on the 12th. Vertnar won 1 Spark, Origin 541, 0.8 Spark. Brute CF, 0.6, Strucker, whatever, 0.4 Spark, and Pocketom, 0.2 Spark. Really, really cool to see those kinds of giveaways. I love those kinds of things because, I mean, first off, a 1 Spark reward, that's $460. I mean, that's crazy. Even the 0.2 Spark, that's a really nice reward to get. And the reward was basically just for minting in a stress test, which I think all of us were doing anyway. Either way, the next thing is going to be the Easter egg hunt on April 15th is when that was announced. Now you'll notice this is actually going on in Los Angeles and Nashville on Sunday, April 17th. So the time that I'm recording this is going to kick off at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for Los Angeles and 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Nashville. Very important to know that there are 2 different locations for this. As far as the tiers, you can win the pink, purple, and yellow Chick Explorers if you're one of the lucky winners. And if we go down, there is a competitive tier in Los Angeles and all of the start and end times, as well as Nashville start and end times there. Make sure to get registered if you haven't already. You're running out of time for those. Players will receive 50% of their fees by completing the competitive hunt in its entirety. So really cool to know that you're at least going to get half of your investment back. And then beyond that, if we go into the casual hunts, the casual egg hunt in LA and Nashville, again, all of the data is here. The registration fees are half at $2,000, which means that you would get 100% of your fees back by completing the casual hunt. In order to register for these treasure hunts, or I guess egg hunts in this case, you can open the Upland app and go to the globe icon on the bottom left and select the city that you wish to register for. A lot of people will accidentally go to the wrong place and not see it show up and be super confused. That's because they're looking in the wrong place. Make sure you have the right city selected so you can register for it. Beyond that, here are all of the rewards and everything for the top 100, or the top 10 in the top 100 to qualify. Top 10 rewards are spread out all across here as far as all of those are concerned. This one, just looking at some of the notes in terms of what is casual play and how do hunts work and all of that, right at the bottom kind of caught my attention down here because they have things like including ciphered messages and riddles and historical references. Really cool that they're going to add a little bit of spice into this one. Best of luck out there to all of you egg hunters, and then we move on to April 15th Queen's Trading Challenge event next. So with the Queen's Trading Challenge, this is the final portion of New York City to be released, which is always super exciting. Of course, this means that with this giveaway challenge, we'll be doing a Queen's Trader Block Explorer, which is always really cool. Those are awesome. Starting Monday, April 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, players complete activities to earn entries into the giveaway and improve their chances to win. Now, as far as the entries are concerned, entries are reset every 24 hours, and although you can't earn more than the maximum amount, because they reset, you can just come back the next day, and you'll be ready to rock and roll. It ends on Thursday, April the 21st at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so we're all on the same page. And as far as earning the entries, there are 4 different activities that you can use to get entries into this one. Players can earn a total of 99 entries for the Queen's Trading Challenge by completing these given these different things. So sends, each send earns 1 entry with a maximum of 3 per day. So make sure to get those 3 sends. Total entries from sends, 9. Property mints. Each property minted earns 5 entries for a total of 10 entries per day, which means that that's 2 properties per day that you can mint. A total maximum entries from this is 30 entries just from minting. Property sales are next, and each property sold earns 5 entries up to a maximum of 10 per day. So again, 2 properties selling per day should get you your max with a total maximum entry amount of 30 entries. And then finally, property purchases. Each property purchased earns 5 entries with a max of 10, a total of 30 there as well. Now, an important note here, and I'm glad that they put this on there, each day resets at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, just so that everybody's on the same page. We have an exact time as to when it resets. The reward, I think, looks really, really cool. I love how this looks. There's going to be 200 people drawn for the Queen Trader Block Explorer, and with this one, I think this is going to be one that I'm going to try to push for, because I really think that one looks cool. Now, they did have a little bit of a note at the bottom going over the requirements for a Thrifty Trader Challenge, and this one is a little bit different, and normally you would expect to have the challenge go off pretty much right after the city launches, but as they say, it requires considerable manpower, resources, time, and as we know, the Upland team, with everything going on in the world right now, is a bit busy and occupied, and they've got a lot of stuff going on, so this is a little bit different this time around, but overall, the concept is the same, and all we've got to do is get some sends, mint some new properties, trade, and all that fun stuff, which we're probably already going to be doing anyway, and then we have a chance to win that Queen's Trader Block Explorer, which looks super awesome. And then over into the fun bits, the market analytics. And with the market analytics, last week we had a overall valuation at 3.357 billion total transactional value. This week we have 3.302. That's a change of a negative 1.638%. Yesterday, when I was going through the numbers, we also had a little bit of an increase of about 2-point-something% yesterday. Today, it seems to be sliding a little bit back down again. Honestly, like we've talked about, I think the majority of people are waiting for the release of the collection information before we actually see the volume hit. Obviously, with the release of Queens, we got a little bit of a bump, but until we get the full data, people aren't really going to put their money on, aside from speculation. As far as unminted properties go, last week we had 506,034. This week, obviously, we have the release of Queens, so we have an increase, not something we normally see very often, but this week we have 677,314 properties, which is a change of a positive 33.847%. So we've increased our baseline of available properties by around 33% or so compared to what it was before, and that should definitely help things a lot from the newer traders' perspective in both Detroit and in the new area in New York. Now, of course, Queens is brand new, so I'm not going to have any data really on Queens until we have the collection information and all the other fun stuff, but aside from that, everything else should be relatively normal this week. Next up in the zone-by-zone analytics is Bakersfield. Bakersfield's the first one up, and of course, we do have some new stuff on the spreadsheet, which makes things more useful, I think, and we'll take a little bit of extra time to go over what that is, but honestly, once you understand it, pretty straightforward stuff. As far as the numbers for Bakersfield, last week we had 9,495. This week, 8,998. That's a decrease of 5.23%. $7 last week to $6.74. That is a decrease of 3.71%, with the lowest USD or UPIX markup at 107%. The arbitrage, one of the first things that you're going to see between here, is the difference between buying in USD and selling into UPIX. So I buy at $6.74 and I sell at $8,998. What's the difference between the two? That's an arbitration trade between the two in hopes of profit. In this case, the profit would be $2,145. That's all the USD to UPIX arbitration means. So when we're going through the collection data, which we will be collecting USD data going forward, this will allow us to figure out which one has the highest arbitration value and which one is the worst. As an example, if I were to buy the historic Bakersfield collection for $1,650, and I were to turn around and sell it at 2.5 million UPIX, that is an arbitration of 850,000 UPIX. However, if we were to buy the next one, the Buck Owens Boulevard, at $1,900, we would only be able to sell it at 1.595 million, which is a loss arbitration of 305,000. That's how you can see where the true value lies between all of these. Looking at the largest winner, largest loser for Bakersfield, unfortunately, Bakersfield doesn't have any winners. The only winners are flat. The largest loser, 33% down over here in downtown. Let me zoom out a little bit here. And we also have 22% down in California Ave. Getting beat up a little bit, but again, with the Queens launch, we know why. Most of them are going to look the same. Bronx is next up on the list. Last week, we had a decrease this week, 13,500 to 12,800, dropping 5.19%. $12.97 to $11.59. That is a decrease of 10.64%. The arbitration value between the two, 1,150, so kind of low on that end. Lowest markup, 97%. If we're looking at the arbitration between all of them, there are definitely some clear winners. The largest arbitration win is Grand Concourse with a 56,000. But if we're looking at the gains and losses for this week, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We were just talking about on how Bakersfield didn't have a single winner. This week on Bronx, they at least have something. We've got Sedgwick Ave over here up 15%. We also have 8% up in Grand Concourse. The rest are pretty much down, the largest loser being down 12.9% over in Pelham Bay. Definitely some momentum and movement going on over here. Then on over into Brooklyn. Last week, the floor was 11,485. This week, 10,800. The USD floor, very, very close, 750 to 737. Percentages, UPIX down 5.96%, USD down 1.73. Arbitration between the two, though, 3,259. Pretty good values inside of there. If we're looking at the overall collection data, we definitely have some pretty big movers here. One of the largest losers is the ultra-rare police collections, dropping from 8 million to 3.5 million. Huge drop, 55%. We also have a 21% increase in the exclusive collection in Broadway, 46% increase in Fulton Street, and a 25% decrease over in Fifth Avenue. As far as arbitration is concerned, the largest one obviously is going to be Main Street down here with a 15 million arbitration, but that's because there's nothing for sale in USD. The only thing for sale is in UPIX, so obviously, if you were able to get it, that arbitration looks insane. It's not really there, though, because there aren't any for sale. Aside from that, the largest one's going to be 600,000 in Dumbo, and we've got some pretty good moves. Over in Chicago next, last week's floor 7,500, this week 7,000. USD floor 598 to 565. It's a decrease in UPIX of 6.67 and 5.52 on the USD side. Lowest markup 77% between the two. USD UPIX arbitrage is 1283. A little bit calm and quiet on that front. As far as the collections are concerned, we definitely do have some pretty decent collection movement once again with a lot of movers. Some notable droppers here. I mean, we have several that are down 20% or more. If we look across here, 26% down in South Shore. We've got 21% down in Damon Ave, 28% down in Hyde Park, 15% down in West Division, 13% down in Southport. Oop, almost missed this one. 21% down in the Loop, 30% down in the Wright buildings. We've got a lot of pullbacks going on in the Chicago side of things. As far as bullishness, we do have a 14% increase in Andersonville, and going down a little bit further on the list, 11% in Lakeshore Drive. But for the most part, getting beat up pretty bad here. Over in Cleveland, next up, 8,500 was last week's floor, 7,500 basically this week, giving us a drop of 11.78%. The USD floor, 7 to 6, dropping 15% almost there. Lowest markup, still 119% though, kind of interesting. Arbitrage value between the two, 14.24, not a big gap between the two overall. On the collection side of things, we do have some decent movers here as well. Not anything as crazy as like a 50% decline or anything nuts like that, but we do have some 30% movers, a 30% decline over here in the breweries area, going from 2.75 million to 1.9. We also have a 34% decrease in Tremont, 18% decrease in Ohio City, and 13% decrease in Professor Ave. Increases, 16% in downtown, and 9% over in Carnegie. That's really about it. Detroit's next up, and honestly, I think a lot of people were kind of curious to see what happened with Detroit since that was the most recent launch. Very frequently, those areas get beat up hard, right? They get dropped on USD really hard, especially since there's a Spark Week too. Like everybody's trying to get UPIX and USD, and everything's getting kind of beat up a little bit. So Detroit naturally being in the spotlight, like, ooh, what's going to happen over in Detroit? We do know that a couple weeks ago, if you remember, what was that? I think it was about 2 weeks ago, we had a really, really big increase and then decrease in Detroit. So that might have been that kind of out of the market, right? Now we're moving into, a new city release. How did Detroit do? Well, not too bad, honestly. They're only down 1.8% in the UPIX side of things, 44.50 to 43.70. The USD floor, 330 to 344. That's actually an increase of 4.24%. Arbitrage value low, 884, but it's a tier 3 city. There's usually not a lot of arbitration inside those. 72% on the markup lowest side of things. As far as collections are concerned, collections do have some pretty big ebb and flow, but again, not what I think a lot of people were expecting. I think a lot of people were expecting Detroit to be that 50%, 40% drop. And yeah, there's some sizable ones. I mean, there's a 32% drop in Grand Boulevard. But that's really about it. I mean, the majority of the other ones, 3%, 5%, down 12% in Denton and Jefferson Chalmers, but up 13% in East English Village. So, I mean, overall, honestly, Detroit did fairly well. The next largest drop is Historic Motors City, which is from 2.45 million down to 1.99. That might be the ebb and flow on the upper end, but that's about it. On the Fresno end of things, we have a flat UPEX floor from 9,000 to 9,000, no change there. 685 down to 6 on the USD floor, though. That means that we have a 12.41% drop on the USD side of things. Lowest markup is 172%. Arbitration value 2850, and even some negative arbitration values in some of the collections. Looking at the collections, speaking of which, we do have some decent back and forth here as well. 25% drop in Woodward Park, 12% down in Tower District, 12% also down in North Grove, 44% decrease in Lowell, big drop there, 25% increase in Fulton, and a 7% decrease in downtown Murals. Lots and lots of back and forth going on in the Fresno side of things, but not nearly as impacted as we've seen in some of the more eastern coastline stuff. Kansas City giving us some pretty decent ebb and flow here. Last week we had a floor of 899.8. This week, $79.99, that's down 11.1%, but the USD floor going from 6 to 7 gives us an increase of 16.67%. Just seems like the UPEX went over into USD. Arbitration value also decreasing, $949. 60% is the lowest markup between USD and UPEX. From a collections perspective, if we move this over just a little bit here, we can see that there are some decent movers. Obviously, the main collection's down 11%, but even Shoal Creek down 14%. 32% decrease in Charlotte Street. Very nice drop there. Otherwise, some stability until we get down to Grand Boulevard, which is a 50% increase, followed by Sunset Hills West with another 45% increase there. Big moves on the upper portions and some pretty big pullbacks on those limited collections there in Charlotte. Wow. Los Angeles is next up. It's that little city up there. I can't fit it on the screen very well with all the different collections they've got. Last week's UPEX floor 7,700. This week 7,360. That's a decrease of 4.42%. The USD floor going down 15.97% down to 5 on the low. That's an arbitration value of 2242 with the lowest markup being 60%. Now, as far as the collections are concerned, again, there are a lot of them, but let's just scoot these over a little bit so we can see some of them because there are some relatively decent moves. One of them you might have already seen. Kind of hard to miss that one, but we have a 125% increase in the Gregorius Angelino. Big lift there, going from 3.8 million to 8.5. Just a little bit of a lift there. Aside from that, going from the top down, we've got a 13% decrease in Sherman Oaks, 15% increase in Echo Park, 18% down in Studio City with a 13% increase in East Hollywood. All the collections I need are the ones that are up. That's kind of a bummer. Hollywood is down 11%. Brentwood's down 10%. We also have some larger moves down. Manchester Boulevard down 16%. 28% down in Windsor Square. Going a little bit further, 11% in Melrose and Mulholland down 15%. 17% down in Franklin Ave, and 26% increase in Scenes of LA. And of course, there is the Gregorius Angelino up 125%. Manhattan next up, giving us last week's UPEX floor 132,249. This week 109,750. That's not a huge surprise. When people are looking to get liquid, Manhattan's usually what gets whacked because that is a fantastic store of value. Up until that point. Until that point, then it dropped 17%. The USD value going from 95 to 90, down 5.26%, with the lowest markup, USD or UPEX, being 193%. That gives us an arbitration value, the largest among some of them, 18,763. Of course, this one is not cheap. Looking at the collection side of things, all of them are, well, not all of them. We do have some pretty big movers. This is the largest one this week, 566% increase in Times Square, going from basically 15 million to 100 million, just a little bit of an increase. Otherwise, 30% decline in Upper East Side, 15% drop in Broadway, 13% drop in Chinatown, 20% down in Little Italy, 16% up in Soho, but 11% down in Tribeca, 21% down in Bleecker, and 77% decrease in Diamond District, going from 9 million down to almost 2. Huge moves going on in the Manhattan collection side especially. Nashville's next up, and don't mind my cat, he decided to join me. We've got a relatively interesting kind of move going on here in Nashville, breaking away from some of the other markets with a nice increase. Kind of interesting how that happened. 9,298 last week, 10,290 this week. That's an increase of 10.67%. The dollar side going from $7.20 to $8, an increase of 11.11. We have an arbitration value of 21.76 and the lowest markup of 72%. Very, very interesting over here in the Nashville side. However, let's take a pause here for a second because the collection end of things is a little bit less healthy, right? As far as the collection end, let me slide over this way. There we go. As far as the collections are concerned, we have a 10% increase, 7% increase, Nashville, West Nashville, all the basics. But then we go a little bit further down the list and we've got some movers. 15% over in downtown, not much going on there. 17 and 21% in Woodland and Woodmont. Then we've got 40% in Broadway, down there from 500,000 to 299. And then just a little bit of a move there, 1.05 million in the live music venues, all the way up to 2 million. That is an increase of 90.48%. Huge moves going on in the Nashville collection side of things, but the floor looking pretty healthy. Next up is going to be the New Orleans end of things, and again, unbelievable on the USD side of things. The UPX floor, 96.49 to 88.87, that's down 7.9%, but 660 up to 794, an increase of 20% on the USD floor. Lowest markup, 80%. Of course, with that lift in the USD floor, we have a very small arbitrage value of 900 between the two, which, again, because of that lift, kind of makes sense. If we're looking at the collection side of things, here again, we've got some of these markets getting absolutely smashed. Looking at some of the collection side of things here, let me zoom out a little bit. We have an 11% decrease in the lower 9th Ward, 17% down in Mid-City, 17% down in French Quarter, 11% down in Lakeshore Lake Vista, 18% down in Central Business and Royal Street, 14% up, there's an up, in Garden District. We also have 39% up in Hain Boulevard, up from 192 to 269. But then there's this one, Haunted Places, basically going from not on sale to on sale, 100 million down to 2.5 million. That is a decrease of 97.5%. In the Oakland area, a little bit more on the stable side of things, although some of the collections are definitely getting rocked here. But last week, 10,500 to 10,198, that's a decrease moderate, 2.88%. USD side going from 788 to 740, decrease of 6.09%. Arbitration value between the two, 26.58, with the lowest markup being 85%. Now, the collection side of things, again, the majority of them are relatively stable, kind of unchanged, but the ones that are moving a lot. We've got a 20% decrease in the West End, 28% decrease in Temsical, 14% increase in the International Boulevard, but then 22% down in Broadway, 32% increase in Solano Ave. So some big moves if they're moving, otherwise just flat. Over in Queens, which again is brand new, we don't really have data for, but if we look at what they did last week we had a floor of around 498. But remember, last week is relative because only traders of executive or chief executive status or higher can trade into USD after 3 days. Everybody else is waiting, and this upcoming week with collections, that's when the USD side of things is going to open up for a lot of people. So this collection, the spacing, the timing on everything is going to be incredibly interesting. We don't have any values or anything, but the lowest markup is at 88% based on the very few USD properties that are there. The USD floor 498, UPX floor 5400. This is going to wildly change over this next week especially, so I don't have a whole lot of data on here until we get more info. However, we do have data for Rutherford, and Rutherford's pretty quick here anyway. Looking at the overall movement that we've got last week, 60,000, this week 53,000. That's a decrease of 11.67%. $48.90 to $37. That's a hefty drop, 24.34% down. However, the lowest markup between UPX and USD is still 400%. Talk about holding on to its value, huh? Now, if we're looking at the Rutherford side of things as far as collections are concerned, 9.27% down and 5.71% down in Parkway Ave and Carmita Ave, respectively. Outside of that, though, there's not much going on, and the arbitration value between the two is $15,200. In San Francisco, the freight train finally slowed down a little bit, which, of course, a city release will do that. If we're looking at the overall movement, though, 34,000 last week to 33,777. That's only down 0.66%. very marginal. If we're looking at the USD floor, $29.99 to 27, down 9.97%, with the lowest markup being 231%. Pretty good overall. Arbitration value between the two, 64.38, not too bad at all. And overall, on the collection end is, especially because San Francisco has been having such a strong run, the concern is, while people are stacking their San Francisco chips, are they going to dump them into the new city? And we can see the collections are the first ones to go. 28% down in Mission District, 7% down in Mission Street, 19% down in Pacific Heights. And then everything else kind of calms down until down here, 51% down in the financial district. We've got a lot of movement in the collection side of things, but the floor, aside from USD, is relatively healthy. Santa Clara is next up, and honestly, this is another one of those that's just, it's such a strong market. Like, Santa Clara is just one of those that when you get it, you just don't get rid of it. Like, you just don't get rid of Santa Clara properties because it's just that kind of market. $28.99 to $28.968, decrease of 0.11%. Ooh. USD value going from $21 to $21.99, an actual increase of 4.71%, but the lowest markup, 62%. It's a big property. That's why it's taken a little bit of time, but we do have some low markups in the area for people to play with. Now, as far as the collections are concerned, this is one where the collections aren't actually taking that much of a beating. We've got a 10% decrease in Southwest and a 7% decrease in El Camino. Otherwise, the collections are flat to up. They're actually doing pretty well. And last but not least is Staten Island. Last week was $11,499. Sorry, a lot of people would wish it was $14K. $11,499 down to $9,998. That's a decrease of 13.05%. USD floor going from basically 8 to 7. That's a decrease of 12.39%. Lowest markup, still 208%. Arbitration value between the two, 28.48. If we're looking at the collection side of things, not a surprise. It's on par with everything else. The collections are the ones that are taking the beating. As far as the collections, though, we're looking at, let's see, which ones do we have going on here? We've got a decrease of 13% on the base collection. Great Kills is down 15%. 18% decrease in Tottenville, 25% in Tot Hill, 28% down in Victory Boulevard. We've got some pretty big pullbacks going on in the Staten Island area. In New York in general, again, as far as the whole collection, the New York zone, if you will, is going to be the one that's going to take some time to kind of figure itself out because the last portion of it was finally released. Now it's got to figure its own structure out. And then finally over into the housing values and spark valuations and all that fun stuff. Looking at what's going on first, lowest markup across the board, USD or UPIX is 98%. Last week's collection houses, $26.49 or $45,000. This week it's $29 and $44,900. That's an increase on the US dollar floor at 9.48%, but a decrease on the UPIX floor marginally at 0.22%. And then finally over into the spark valuation and housing markets and all that fun stuff. Looking at the lowest markup this week, 98%, and then going in between the buildings. Pitched roof and flat roof, on the UPIX side of things, down 9% and 14%. We also have a 16% decrease in large apartment buildings. On the USD side of things, 15% decrease in small ranch houses, but a 17.5% increase in medium townhouses, 12% down in large apartment buildings there as well. Having a little bit of a struggle on that end of things. If we're looking at the most profitable to build for this week, we have the small ranch house at 35.35. It's almost like we did a video about that not too long ago. That's weird. Looking at the values on the USD side of things that's a little bit different. The most valuable is going to be the flat roof small townhouses as far as the valuation and profitability. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week in review in the Upland Metaverse. We've got a lot of stuff going on this week with Upland Collections for Queens. Make sure that you unlist your properties that you don't want to accidentally sell. That is a horrible feeling, selling a property in a collection that you didn't realize it was a collection and it sold faster than you could unlist it. You don't want to have that. If you have any questions, topics for new videos, street views, or anything else, drop them in the comments below. You know I always love hearing from you. Until the next one, have an amazing rest of your weekend, and we'll see you in the next. Thanks.